Careful now.
Boing.
So cool to be playing vinyl.
Took the record off the turntable.
You ready for this?
Welcome to Behind the Vinyl. Here's your host, Stu Jeffries.
This is the podcast that turns you into that person at the party who has all sorts of cool little factoids about music. Welcome to Behind the Vinyl, where the artists tell you everything about how their song came to be and the story behind it. In this episode, we once again turn things over to the late great Miles Goodwin of April Wine for his take on how Tonight is a Wonderful Time sounds so good thanks to a key instrument.
You can't have too much cowbell. Will Ferrell told us on Saturday Night Live, so the cowbell is wonderful. I still really like the cowbell, actually. Something about it that's rock solid somehow.
More with Miles in a few minutes. We're kicking off this episode with Gowan and Moonlight Desires. Listen for him to tell you how he managed to do something while shooting the video back then that you would be arrested for if you tried it today.
Yeah. Impossible for me to hear the opening of this song. Yeah, impossible. Not to picture me myself on top of a Mayan pyramid, you know, in Teotihuacan, Mexico. The sun coming up and a helicopter suddenly emerging and coming up over the horizon as I stood on the Pyramid of the Moon, Moonlight Desires, and John Anderson was standing on the Pyramid of the Sun. And he was dressed as a Mayan god. And just the transition from night into day, although the song is actually more to do with the transition from day into night, it was, I'd have to say it was a little bit like walking into Ringo's house to make Strange Animal a Beatle home. To be on top of a pyramid at that time of day, after having paid off the the guards at the site to allow us to do this, or to look the other way for a few hours, pretty astounding. And then I have to say, John Anderson, though, the beauty of him in the studio singing this harmony part is, again, one of those ridiculously fortunate occurrences in my life, because I was such a gigantic Yes fan. I used to sing along with Close to the Edge and Tales from Topographic Oceans just in my room, like trying to harmonize with him. And then to see him in the studio, completely different experience this time. It was in Los Angeles, in a pretty legendary studio there, and to see him come up with that harmony and come up with the whole approach to the song, it really just opened the song up to brought it to a completely other level. And yeah, it's great when you actually meet one of your idols and it goes spectacularly well. I think we've all had the experience where it can go the other way. Coming up with that and adding that to the song, just great. Again, same producer, David Tickle, worked on this record and did a beautiful job. And he had been working with John Anderson on the Legend soundtrack and had played him Strange Animal. And then when he heard the bed track that we had done for this song, he really liked it. And, you know, there's all the angels singing right there. That's what happens right in that spot. Oh, yeah. Oh. And dancing around on top of a pyramid. The director Rob Quartley, who made so many great videos in the 1980s and was kind of the central video master in Canada at that time. And just also, I love the extravagance of making this video. You know, to use the Mayan pyramids and although we were actually threatened by the Mexican authorities that if we filmed in the Mayan pyramids any further, we were going to find out what Mexican jail was all about. It's funny because I played there with Styx just a few years back, and I told that story to a bunch of various security people that were around us, and they laughed and said, "No, you were allowed to do that. You know, everyone's out there with an iPhone camera now, videoing them." I love the fact that so many people, you know, still not just relate to this song, but have discovered it in years since, and it's become, you know, an important song or a pivotal song in their lives, and that's the longevity of it is really is really an astounding thing. And again, it's a piece of my life that it's like the blood in my veins.
Moonlight Desires from Gowan. And please, don't climb the Chichen Itza pyramids when you go to Mexico. I'm Stu Jeffries, your host of Behind the Vinyl, the podcast. Still to come, Miles Goodwin of April Wine and how to play a good cowbell. But before that, Amanda Marshall was back on the music scene last year with a new album and supporting tour. If you managed to catch her in concert, you know she's a powerhouse and a great performer. Before her tour started, Amanda managed to pop by our Behind the Vinyl studios and tell us about her song Dark Horse.
We may not have time for the rest of the tracks. I'll talk about this all day. So Dark Horse. This piano intro. First of all, we didn't have an intro for the song. There was no intro. And there was not that cymbal swell. There wasn't anything to get us into the song. We were just playing the song over and over and over and over again, absent any kind of intro. And it was getting really frustrating. I remember Dave was like, I don't know how we're gonna get into this song. And then one day I walked in and he was noodling. He was playing the part. I think he was trying to get a keyboard sound or something. And I was like, that's great. Why don't we do that? It's fantastic. That should be the thing right there. Why don't we make that the intro? And I remember he was like, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, shut up, you are not. Yeah, so once we cleared that hurdle, the rest of the song was pretty much already written. Dean McTaggart came over to my little furnished apartment that I was living in Burbank. I'd never been on my own for that length of time before. I remember the first time I walked in, I had a panic attack. But Dean McTaggart came over to my apartment and he said, again, sort of like Birmingham, I've got this idea set in Texas. And I don't know, the word Abilene keeps kind of rolling around in my head. And the story's about these two kids who are trying to like make it work and trying to like, you know, kind of run away together. And it was a love story. And immediately I was like, I can sing this song. I had just moved out of my parents' house not long before. You know, they weren't crazy about my boyfriend. And there was conflict. I was trying to sort of individuate from them, and I was trying to like get my music career off the ground. And it's a time in your life when you're trying to figure out like what you're doing. You're trying to be a person. You're trying to be an adult. And so I immediately was like, I can tell this story. This is my thing. And Dean had written most of the first verse, and I said, leave it with me. I'm gonna write some more stuff. And I think I wrote a couple more verses, and the one that we picked was the second. Something so sacred. It's something worth this kind of fight. 'Cause love knows no patience. And you can't please everyone all the time, which sounds just like me. I mean, that's a very kind of, you know, shrug it off kind of thing to say. Yeah, and I just remember sort of sitting in the apartment trading lyrics back and forth with Dean. That melody, I can't remember if he came up with the melody or if he maybe collaborated with Dave Tyson on the melody, but I do remember feeling very strongly about that little end bit where there's sort of that run at the end that I kind of threw in at the end, and I was like, I really like that. I really want to keep it. A lot of the time when you're making your first record too, when you're working as a collaborative process with other people, you know, you're kind of subject to their instruction and their guidance. And I was really lucky. I had a lot of really great mentors, but I was also lucky that I also had a lot of really strong opinions, and I had a lot of really, you know, pretty decent ideas. I had decent taste, and that goes a long way. And this song, I think, was the product of just everybody being kind of in the right mindset at the right time. We all knew that it should have that 4 on the floor, dum 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 dum, which I love. It was very reminiscent of a lot of Don Henley stuff, a lot of like Eagles stuff. I loved that. And it gave the song a heartbeat, which really was fitting because, you know, the song was a love story, and that's what it needed. Those background vocals were really, really important, and I remember singing that under harmony, the harmony underneath the lead. And the first time I heard it, I was like, this is perfect. It was so kind of flat and kind of grounding for the chorus melody. Yeah. And then, and then it kind of blew up. I remember talking to Elton John about it on the phone. I remember when he called me and he was like, this song is the heart of your record and they've got to release it as a single because, it is the heart of your album. And to have somebody say that about something that you had written was, to have somebody like that say something about that you had written when you were like 20, 21 was kind of overwhelming, It was amazing. Yeah. This is another song that, when people sing stuff that you've really put yourself into, when they sing it back to you in a live setting, that's the most gratifying thing. And this song means something to people, so, you couldn't really ask for more than that.
That was Dark Horse from Amanda Marshall. She is energetic, a great storyteller. We have more from Amanda in upcoming Behind the Vinyl episodes. We lost a talented man late 2023 that shook the music world. The news of Miles Goodwin of April Wine passing was a shocker for sure, and we are grateful for the amazing legacy of great music he left behind. Like this hit, Tonight is a Wonderful Time. Here's Miles with the genesis of that song.
This song is an example of taking 3 chords and having a whole composition that sounds like it's going places when it not really is, not musically anyway. If anybody can play 3 chords, they can play this song. And it's nice when that happens. And it's one of the things you learn as a songwriter, that you can change, you could have the cake, but it's the icing that changes. It's the ear candy is always some little twist on those chords. Here is exactly the same as the verse. It's identical. I just changed the melody, added a Celeste, which is a keyboard, and then I bring it down to a really rock feel. Same chords. Nothing's changed. Rest. Same chords, and again. And of course, it's cowbell, and you can't have too much cowbell, as Will Ferrell told us on Saturday Night Live. So the cowbell is wonderful. I still really like the cowbell, actually. It's something about it that's rock solid somehow. And of course, when you're recording cowbell, a lot of things determine if it works. And one is having the right cowbell, because they can sound pretty horrific if you have the wrong one, especially if there's a cow attached to it. But anyway, no, and then you got to play them. There's no sampling, man. You got to be on your mark. You got to be on, in the moment, and you got to have it mic'd right. And all these things to make it sound good, and not like some kind of annoying noise in the background. So it's cool. But yeah, and the funny thing is about the song, is one of our most popular songs. I mean, I still do this song. We still do this song, or I'll do it in my solo show, and the whole place erupts. They know all the words. They sing along. They're just having a great old time. So I have fondness for this, and little modulation, otherwise the same progression. This album's, this song still stands the test of time. People just really like it. I do the Songwriter Circle with Bruce Guthrow and Matt Anderson and Matt Minglewood and other people. We all sit around and we sing and we tell stories and we sing our songs, and typically in Halifax Casino in the Schooner Room, wonderful venue. It's been going on for years. It's a pleasure to work with these gentlemen. And when we do this song, it becomes the closer for the show, because everybody starts singing and dancing. And so the song works. Worked then, it works now. It's amazing how people can identify with the song for a long time and still hold it, dear. So it's cool. And it's so juvenile.
Miles Goodwin of April Wine closes this episode of Behind the Vinyl, the podcast. We appreciate you listening and are giving virtual high fives if you checked out some of our previous episodes and checking out the new ones still to come. Feel free to subscribe to our channel, leave a comment with kind words, or both. I'm Stu Jeffries. We'll chat again soon.
This has been Behind the Vinyl, the podcast. hosted by Stu Jeffries. Audio production courtesy of Doug Morehouse, Derek Welsman, and Troy McCallum. Thanks for listening.